Hey everybody, we have a new sponsor and a special deal for our listeners of Karen Isn't Always Right. If you have any photos or documents that you need to scan, or videotapes, audio tapes, or film reels that you need to import, you should check out avgearguy.com. If you mention the name Karen Isn't Always Right when you order, you're going to get 5% off, and a portion of your order is going to help support the podcast Karen Isn't Always Right. All of those formats degrade over time and are sitting ducks in the case of fire or theft. Why not convert it all to digital? All your memories can be stored safely on the cloud or even a hard drive that fits in your pocket. AV Gear Guy has over 30 years of experience with all kinds of media, and they can accept orders from anywhere in the US. Don't forget to mention the name of Karen Isn't Always Right and get 5% off. For more details and to book, visit their website at avgearguy.com. That's avgearguy.com. Hey, Karen Isn't Always Right listeners. It's Christopher here with another special episode of Karen Isn't Always Right. This time we've got Danny on, and this is Danny's second time on the show. You may remember his last episode titled Danny Might Think I'm a Bitch. But this time he comes on to share his movie theater story, how he got involved in movie theaters. We go off on some tangents about a variety of different things, but at the end of the day, it's all about why we love working in movie theaters and what the appeal is and why we have such a passion for it. I always enjoy talking with Danny, and so I hope you guys enjoy this episode as well. So without further ado, here's Danny. What's up, Danny?
What's going on?
Nothing. Welcome back to Karen Isn't Always Right.
But she thinks she is.
She does indeed. I was telling Jeff the other day, man, I don't know that I've wanted to be yelled at by a Karen so much in my entire life as right now, because that means we're in a theater working, but here we are. So
I don't think I necessarily want to be yelled at, but it'd
well,
be nice to be dealing with people right now.
Get the point.
Yeah. Same point, different perspective.
Yeah. So like what I was saying before we actually started recording, we're just kind of taking a little bit of a turn on the podcast and just kind of focusing in on, why people like you and I have stuck around, in movie theaters as long as we have. Because I think we can both agree that when we got started, when we did, the pay wasn't exactly, the draw, So clearly there was other stuff that was drawing us to it. So I think we should just jump in. Why don't you tell me kind of like how you got your start and why and all that good stuff.
Always been a movie person, so that's what really got my start. Started in 1988. Obviously, the movie theater I started at was in a mall, so that was a double appealing thing to me because it was in the mall. The hours were good. I'm a workaholic anyway, always have been. So even at that age, it's like I didn't mind working the hours. I was glad to do it.
Was it your first
being
job?
around. Third
job? Okay.
Third job. Yep. So I'd done first job was Ponderosa, second job was Taco Bell. So I was in the restaurant food anyway.
Yeah.
And back when I was at those restaurants too, I don't know if I'm allowed to say their names, but anyway, the the second job we used to make our own food, and of course they don't do that anymore.
Sure.
You come in the morning, you cook the beans in a pressure cooker, you fried the beef, you grilled the steak and chicken.
Oh wow.
You fried all the shells in house.
I worked at Taco Bell for a little bit. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, no, everything's rethermalized now. So it was a different experience. That got me, kind of, as where I'm at now. I've been around the restaurants, and then of course the theaters was still food, but it was simpler. Back when I started in 1988, we started in a movie. Before you ask, because I know you asked this before, but Scrooged was the movie that was was out then.
Hey, you're listening.
Was one of the ones I remembered. So you had a manual ticket machine, so you can only do 5 tickets at a time. That's as many as you could print out. There were no cash registers or calculators. You had to add everything in your head. You had to make change in your head. Somebody coming by popcorn. It was popcorn, soda, and candy. That was the extent of it. Hot dogs and stuff.
Hot dogs?
No, those came later.
Okay.
So it was basically it was popcorn, candy, and that was it. You had to add up everything in your head. You had to make change. And going about your business and still, Still,
What state were you in?
I was in Ohio.
Ohio. Yeah.
So it was a mall, had eight theaters, and I know Jeff touched on this because we later on down the road we actually worked together at the same place. It was less theaters, but when I started, it was 8 screens. So you had theater 1, which was 1,100 seats, and then when they had to add ADA stuff, it went down to about 1,000 seats. So between 1,000 and 1,100
That was the
seats.
one he told me about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 aisles to come in, so you had a center section and the side section. I mean, huge.
So I want to ask something that I meant to ask him because I worked for Dickinson. We had like a 900 seat auditorium at one of the theaters, but the aisles were carpeted, and that was the worst thing in the world when you're an usher is having these carpeted aisles. Did you guys have carpeted aisles or concrete?
No. Yeah. No, the aisles were the walk-ins were carpeted, but the actual aisles where you sit were tile. Yeah, okay. The rows were tile. Yeah. Okay. So the aisles, the 4 aisles were carpeted. The front was carpeted. Okay. The lobby was.
You
carpeted.
Want to kill yourself when you got carpeted rows, man.
Oh, that's what I deal with now. So yes, twice as 4 times longer to clean with half as many people.
Yeah. And Hokies don't work for shit. So
no,
sorry, Hokie.
they do. The Haggis seem to work really well if you get one of the smaller ones.
I like those.
The other thing that we found is they sell their Makita sells a backpack vacuum that's battery powered.
Okay.
Best thing in the world for that circumstance. So that's the only way you can get it clean fast enough.
At my last theater, we got a Makita, like a wide area one for the hallways. It works pretty awesome.
The backpack works great because when you're dealing with carpet down the aisles, I mean that's the only way you're gonna get clean.
Especially
when it's tile, you get a 24, 36-inch broom, you run it down to the end, somebody sweeps up the piles, and you're done. Yeah. I always use a broom. You can use a dust mop. I just tend to use a broom because when you get into water, it doesn't destroy it like it does a dust mop. But,
that's the downside to it for sure.
But either way, you're pushing it to the ends and going back and forth, and somebody sweeps the piles up and you're done. So
this one company. So anyway, sorry, not to interrupt. This one company that I worked for, the last one, it was great because you could sweep it all the way down and then dump it into the next row, and then get down to the next row and sweep under the seat all the way back down. And you just zigzag. By the time you're done, you're all the way. You have a pile all the way down at the front row.
Right.
With the company now, you just have to do each row individually. I can't believe we're sitting here talking about sweeping. Whatever. Anyway, go on.
Well, to clean a 1,000-seat auditorium was quite an undertaking.
Shit. Yeah, you better have some efficiencies, man.
3-4 people, because it was a sold out, and you had 1,000 people waiting to come in. So
yeah, for sure.
So there was 8 screens. You had the 1,100 seat auditorium, which was the jewel. I still miss that theater to this day. It still exists behind the store that they put in the lobby.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, actually 3 of the screens still exist. They're just walled off and they're behind the storage that they actually put in. Yeah. So you had that one. Then upstairs on the mezzanine you had number 2, which was the second largest, and you had 3 and 4, which were smaller. Okay. And then down the road they added 5, 6, 7, and 8, which were shoe boxes. The booth ceiling was so low it would touch the beams would touch your head. So I mean, it was just enough room to platters. This is back in film, so you're doing platters and everything. So
my boy that I'm posting today, we used to work at a small 6-screen AMC, and they had their booth was on the same level as the auditorium, and so they used mirrors to project the image back out. Wow. So it hit and then bounce off that to another mirror that would project out. So if there was writing, it would project back the same way.
Oh wow,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So I did a lot of work on the 2, 3, and 4 was my main. That's where I was assigned to, because you would either be assigned to one. Now, obviously, in busy times, and it happened a lot during the holidays because somebody always called off. And we need you to go down to Cinema 1, and you would run down there when their movie was coming in, then you would come back, or you may get sent down there your whole shift. Just
what'd you do? So, were you concession?
I was everything. There was no department. You just came in and you got trained. You did everything. You did a box one day. You did concession one day.
We had to work our way up.
You did usher. Yeah. Of course, the box office was a cushy job because you just sat in the box. Basically you could sit down and you just sit and waited for people to come.
I always liked usher though. I always liked, and I still do. I liked the ability to just be able to go wherever. You had very little supervision. I don't know. I always thought it was better. I hated concession.
I didn't always like concession, but I like the old school concession when you were selling candy, soda, and corn, not 860,000 items,
For real.
and people can't figure out what they want or what you sell for some reason because
Yeah.
it's changed so much over the years.
And then the
But
transaction times are so much longer. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So that's what got me started. I just love movies, and then from there it's just I've always worked 2 and 3 jobs, and I'm just a workaholic.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I worked at an art house and actually built a Cinerama screen. I don't know if you're familiar with Cinerama is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
3 projectors. And we actually built the strip screen, 1 strip at a time.
Jeez.
Put in the 3 booths. The guy that set it up, um, he was Mr. Cinerama. Name's John Harvey. I don't know if you know who he is, but
Uh-uh.
he actually we set this one up because normally it would take 3 projections. Well, he set it up so 1 person could do it.
Okay.
He would bounce back and forth between all 3 projection
Still platters?
projectors.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he would bounce back between all 3 to make sure everything stayed in sync, and but the actual Cinerama screen. So I did that. So like I said, my start was I just liked the movies. I got free movies. It was in the mall. So when you're off work or during work, when you got a break, you go to the food court or go to the arcade, which is right next door. So there's a lot of pluses. The hours were good. It's always, and I tell kids this even nowadays. It's the funnest job you ever have.
Yeah.
There's work to be done, but you can make this the funnest job you ever have. Now, that's entirely up to you, but the job as a whole, it's movies, man. What you're Hollywood, so you're involved in all that. So that's basically where I got started, and I've been in it ever since. I think since '88 I've been out maybe 5 years just doing other things. But normally even when I'm doing other things, I'm also doing that part time because I just
that's
like
how
to
it was
keep
for
my
me
foot in
too.
it.
Yeah, especially in high school and college, but even in my adult years, like in high school, I remember I worked at a grocery store and a theater one summer, and then another year I was a greenskeeper on a golf course, and then worked at the theater. Another year it was working at Applebee's, and then at the theater, and I just kind of rotated around. So because I always want, like you, I was a workaholic, I wanted to make money, and I couldn't always get as many hours as I wanted to at the theater. So yeah, just do whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in high school, I was working 3 jobs.
Yeah.
People like, why you always got money? That because I'm always working. It's
and I don't have time to spend it. So
right. Yep. Yeah, you have no time to spend it. That's for sure. But I had to put gas in my car and pay for my insurance.
Yep.
And like I said, it's how I raised my kids. But I didn't give them all that stuff. You gotta be able to pay for that stuff. I'm not putting gas in your car and paying your insurance and. You want a car, you need to save up for it. I'm not, that was just always me, and that's what I did. And I turned out okay. My kids turned out okay, so obviously it worked. So like I said, it was just a thing. So that's why I was always working, and I just liked working. It was just it was nice to have money when you wanted to do something. When I wanted to, obviously in high school or whatever, arcades and movies was the big thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with, used to be a place called Malibu Grand Prix where you could drive cars.
Yep.
I want money to do that. Well, I can't do it. I'm going to do it because I've been working 3 jobs. I'm off Saturday. So, I'm going to go drive some cars.
I got to go by myself. I'm going.
Yeah. I'm getting 100 tokens and I'm going to get me, 10 laps and go to town. So, so that's, just to be able to do stuff like that. And, even living at home, just being independent, my mom was, it was her phone, so stay off the phone. Well, I got my own phone line in my room and I paid for it because I was working. I want to talk on the phone. That's what I got to do. That's what I got to do. So it was my decision. And you want to stay on the phone, get your own phone line. So okay, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So I know I'm kind of skewing off here, but yeah, but that's how I got started. And like I said, it's a great business to be in. What we're going through now, like I said, I think most everybody, I think there's going to be some companies that are going to be collateral damage.
Yeah.
But I think the business as a whole is going to actually come out better because there's going to be a lot of pent up demand for it. So people are going to come out in droves just to be around other people. So
for sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you listen to me and Jeff, right? Is that the last one you listened to? Yeah. I mean, I completely agree that I think we've heard so many people over the years, the media likes to talk about it. The movie theater industry's dying. The industry's dying. And it's like, well, I don't agree. And now that we've seen so many people, have stuck in their homes, not being able to do anything, as soon as we open those doors, man, and honestly, I think it's going to be regardless of product, because I think one of the concerns has been, what are we gonna play if all these studios keep pushing movies? Well, first of all, those studios can change the release dates again if they want, but secondly, we play Bugs Bunny for all I care, and I'm sure people will still come see it if it means that they can watch a movie in a movie theater. Personally,
Well,
that's
even
my opinion, but
and even if they have to do reduced rates or free, and they bring in old product, that'll get them in the door just to be able to see stuff. So,
sure.
I don't think I agree with what you're saying. If product was an issue, we wouldn't have sub-run theaters anywhere.
Right.
So I don't think it's a product issue. It's people want to get out, people want to get back to the theaters. I think there's pent up demand right now for movie popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
I think people miss you. Of course, you can. Of course, you and I make it just like I do at the theater at the house, because I know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Not everybody knows how to do that and what to use. So there's other popcorns, but there's just something about going into a movie theater, smelling that popcorn and eating it. So,
sir, do you have vegan popcorn at your house?
yeah.
Is that soy based?
You're right. Yeah. Is that gluten free? Yes,
Exactly.
it is.
I don't know. Let me check the package.
Yeah. So there's a lot of pent up, and let's be honest, the movie industry. You've been in long enough. The movie industry has been dying for 20 years. If you listen to the.
Oh yeah.
If you listen
longer than that, really, if you
experts,
really
but 20 years has been real big. Oh, it's just dead.
Yeah.
Because that's when the internet really started to hit.
Yeah.
And then as we got in, it's dead. What's funny is dead, and we're setting records every year on revenue. 11 billion.
Yeah. Well, and look, I think streaming is an amazing technology, and I think it's awesome. But if I want to go do something, I'm going to go do something. I don't like sitting on my ass on my couch all the time. And sometimes I'd rather sit on my ass somewhere else, but like do it as a family or do it as a couple, or sometimes even just by myself. Like I want to get the movie theater snacks. I want to sit in a movie theater chair with a huge screen and see it that way and have that experience and just get out and go do something, So even if I have it on demand at the tip of my fingers, I still like to go see it in theaters, and I don't think I'm different.
No, unless you're a gazillionaire and you actually have a $100,000 theater room and an actual popcorn popper that they would use at a cinema, totally the same way. There's a big difference. And TVs have gotten bigger. Okay, so let's do 82 inches. It's still pales into comparison to go into your bigger theaters. 35 feet by 75 feet. You're not even, you're a corner at 82 inches. You're a corner.
Even if you have a projection screen, you still can't beat a regular theater. Especially in terms of quality. But
you're right. I mean, you can get close on quality nowadays. I mean, because it's just there, but you're still even.
But the average person isn't a nerd.
All right. Well, you go 120 inches, you're still 10 feet. So you're still just a corner.
Yeah.
So you're not yet. And the sound systems, like I said, if you put a theater in your house, you had the ability to do that, and you spent the money to sound deadening materials and putting the speakers in the right place and tuning it up like we do, EQ and everything out, then I would probably sit in my house because I wouldn't want to go.
You better make sure you've got masking though. I don't know if you're on. There's a site, and look, I love the site, and I'm not going to say it by name, but it's on Facebook and it's out there. But these guys, they're die hard, and they've been around for a long time, and I think a lot of them have worked in theaters. But some of these guys, man, they are so intent on masking being put back in theaters, and it's
I honestly miss that.
I miss it. I'm not saying I don't, but at the end of the day, it's like, look, these companies know what they're doing. They're going to do what they think is the best thing for the theaters at the time. It's not necessarily needed anymore.
I will disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. I mean, if you honestly, you go into your theater, your old theater, even if you're watching a flat, which people are like, what is he talking about? 1.85 to 1. What's he talking about?
This probably does know what they're talking about.
1.85 to 1. Okay, that takes up your whole screen in your auditorium.
Yeah.
But then you go 2, 3 to 5 to 1, you have
You get the
empty
bars.
space top and bottom. So it's nice to have that masking.
But it's still crisper than it was when it was film.
Yes.
You know,
Unless
and
you got
I
a
think
green,
that's the point.
green print, then it wasn't. I
Right.
mean, it's
But
pretty
I
close.
think that's the point is that, look, the guys on that site, they're like the only ones that
Right.
that care, you know. And I'm not saying that's not important, but at the end of the day, we're appealing to the masses, you know, and is it really worth it for 5 guys, you know?
Well, let's go one step further. Okay, if we're gonna design
I'm
these
gonna catch hell
auditoriums,
for this, aren't I?
no, oh, not at all.
No,
This
from
is
those
what,
guys, not from
oh,
you.
probably. But here's the other part of it. If we're designing these screens for flat, or let's say we design a screen to scope, then my thing is obviously scope. You get a better overall view.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why not build the auditorium for scope and shoot every movie scope?
Yeah, I never understood that either. Yeah.
Why are we?
Why do we even have 2 options?
Well, yeah. And when I worked in an art house, I did 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter, 70 millimeter.
70, yeah.
So I'm doing 1 2 to 1 because you're talking square.
Yeah.
That's what it was back in the day. 30s and 40s and 50s. It was 1 2 to 1. It was square. Then you got 185, you got 135, you got 133 to 1. I don't know if you know all the formats, but I was showing all those formats.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of difference, and you obviously couldn't mask all of
So I
them.
guess we're lucky we got it narrowed down to 2.
Right. And honestly, we are. I mean, because over the history of film, there was a lot of different aspect ratios.
But with digital now, I'm just sort of surprised that we can't just agree on
Correct.
one. And maybe there's, I'm not a tech guy. There's some deficiency in my knowledge there, but maybe there's something I don't know that's keeping.
No, it's just the filmmaker's choice on do they want to shoot the scope or flat. And especially now, there's not a lot of I know Tarantino does, and some people like that still shoot on actual film, but a lot of people aren't even shooting on film anymore.
No,
you're using for example, an IMAX camera, because I know that's a name brand, but or Panavision, but you're on digital media because you want to direct transfer. You don't want to have any blemishes on. Yeah, and you don't want any blemishes because sometimes the film, even filming, there can get minor damage to the film, and you end up with those blemishes on your finished product. So, but yeah, I think that's one thing Hollywood needs to look at is they need to go, hey, what's keeping us? And I haven't researched it enough to see if anybody's even talked about it or studied it, but what's keeping us from just picking a format? And we're in the digital age now. At home you play a movie, it'll automatically convert it to 16 by 9. It's automatically going to do that and fill your screen for you. So
but you lose image on the sides, right, when they do that. I think I've seen when they transfer it to
if it's shot in scope and then you blew it up, I mean, obviously to fill that up, you lose the sides.
Or they do pan and scan on some, but
and that's awful. That's the worst thing ever. I hate pan and scan.
Well, maybe we should ask the guys on that website. I bet they know.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's something that they definitely should look. If they haven't, they need to look at that. Hey, instead of building these theaters with a flat screen and then you got wasted screen top and bottom, let's make a scope screen and
film on my large format screens. Like, I mean, you've been to my last theater. I mean, dude, when it's scope, you're losing tons. I mean, it's a huge screen, and I mean, if you add up the measurements on both the top and the bottom together, I mean, it's 10 feet.
It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot. Well, and that's where the masking comes in, because I think for the untrained eye, for the casual movie watcher,
they don't know. Yeah.
For somebody that's been around as long as I have and you have, I noticed that.
Yeah.
I don't want to see. I want that masking that so it's nice and crisp because also as and I'm sorry if I'm getting off of your subject.
No, man, this is cool. I like this.
The technical aspects of the movie business, and I don't know how familiar you are. Fortunately, I've been fortunate enough to working in these art houses and building screens, so I'm a little more Yeah,
I mean,
may be
I've
a little
opened
old
enough
first for
theaters and I've
you.
been a projectionist long enough that I have a decent amount of familiarity with all this.
So as they, you know, the ideal sight line is directly middle, up and down, left to right of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
As they change the sight lines, okay, as they take a lot of these screens and start curving them, when you don't have that masking, you see it start to turn
It
into a
degrades.
rhombus.
Yeah, it degrades.
Well, it turns into a rhombus. It spreads out. So then you got stuff hanging off the sides. Then you're losing top and bottom, but you got stuff hanging off, and the picture's not square anymore. It's you start to get that trapezoid looking shape.
Sure.
So if we go back to Hollywood, well, we want to shoot 185, we want to shoot 235. That's just what we want to do. Then when they build these theaters, and you can't tell me that they can't do it. They need to look at these sight lines and get these sight lines straight, get a straight screen, get the screen square. Then the masking is not going to be as critical. But when you start curving screens, when you start getting this trajectory up, and the digitals do pretty good, unlike the back in the day, you had to take the aperture plate out and take a file to it, to make sure.
Oh man, if you did that at my company, death will become you for sure.
What, filing an aperture plate?
Oh yeah, because there's been, I know a handful of GMs out there back in the day, it's 35 millimeter. They did that. They filed their own aperture, and holy shit, man, that there was hell to pay when that happened. So
well, if you knew how to do it, and you it's just minute. It's not a lot.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah, I agree. But
if somebody jacks up an aperture plate, you got to show this film, then you're going to take another aperture plate, because that's one thing you can't go, okay, I'm going to take aperture plate off of 2 and put it on 3. It's not going to work.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And sometimes it may be so far out you can't file it, but there's changes that got to be made. Yeah. So, I think there's some tweaking, again, the overall the movie business, love it. But, there's some idiosyncrasies when you start getting behind the scenes of going from film to digital, changing the screen, changing the sight lines, because, you put in recliners, or you're converting slope to stadium, you're converting stadium to recliner. The projectors sometimes have to be raised up or lowered or moved, to get these sight lines. Mm-hmm. For the most part, most of them are centered left to right, but not a lot of them are centered top to bottom. Yeah. So it's kind of hard. So and then obviously I'm a big film fan, so I kind of miss the sound in the booths.
The clackety clack.
Yeah. You kind of miss that, and it's kind of hard. You can't hear problems anymore.
Yeah.
Unless it's something glaringly obvious.
Right. I miss that too. Like walking through, like my offices used to be up in the booth, and right. You'd know as soon as you walk out of the office, you can hear or not hear, because every projector has its own personality. Like I remember this one theater I worked at, number 6 had its own sound. Like you knew if number 6 was playing or not playing. And if you knew it was supposed to be playing and you didn't hear that knocking that you're accustomed to, it's like, uh-oh. Either that intermittent went out or that projector's down or something, something's up. So I miss that too.
Yeah. Because even when you had, and obviously you had plenty of warning lights for that, because when you were in the booth, and I miss those shifts too. Those booth shifts where you're up in the booth your whole shift, you're threading, you're monitoring everything. Alarm goes off. You can almost hear once you get near the projector. Okay, you got a brain wrap. Did it wrap in the projector? Did it destroy the intermittent? Whatever the problem may be. Yeah. Which again, once they went to that polyester film, okay, well, it doesn't catch on fire. Well, great. It stretches.
But now it's too strong.
Well, yeah, it stretches and it causes static beyond belief.
Oh man, I used to have in Fort Collins, the original theater I worked up there. Prints used to fly off all the time. When we first opened, because it would stick, and then it just wouldn't take up correctly. And then you walk up there and there's a print hanging halfway off the platter, as it going around, you're like, oh shit. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was all kinds of, they had the sticky poos that would stick on the platters.
Yeah.
And then we actually, we had
real creative.
Yeah. Well, we would make rings that would actually clip onto the platter to hold the film so it wouldn't slide off. Yep. And then, you run into prints like Titanic.
They're too long.
you're lucky if you have an inch left on the platter.
Dude,
So you have to put a ring on it.
So long, it warped our platters.
Yeah.
Because it's so damn heavy, But
and carrying that thing to a different house, when they change.
You can't clamp it right. Although I know guys that don't like to clamp movies, and it's like, you're crazy.
I always clamp movies and put them on a board. We have boards and clamps.
I didn't always put them on a board, but we would always team it.
Well, that big, always on a board. Yeah. You would leave the ring in because you had the boards that the pins would go into the board. You would clamp it. You ain't risking dropping that sucker, and 2 or 3 of you would carry that to where it needs to go.
Did you hear me tell Jeff I dropped Apollo 13 on myself? And I remember, so I was standing. There was 2 of us working in the booth, and it might have been a Thursday or something. And I was trying to just slide it onto the platter. I didn't clamp it like an idiot. And I was sliding it onto the platter, and it just went like all the way down my body. And I remember my friend Ryan was threading the projector like just to the left of me. And I was like, Ryan, he's like, what up? I was like, I need your help. Give me a second. No, man, I need your help now. He looks over, he's like, oh no. I was like, yeah.
I bet you clamped every movie after that.
Hell yes, I clamped. I mean, that's only one example of some of the just crazy ass stuff that I've seen.
Well, I've watched projectors get destroyed with polyester film.
Oh, same.
And you lose a whole reel. You damage the projector. Where when it was acetate, 2 frames, you're back in business.
Yeah.
Just pap, and you're done. You're back in business. So yeah, there's been a lot of changes. So all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. My whole career was polyester, so I never worked with acetate. Was it really catching on fire that easily?
Well, it was back when they were doing carbon arc. And you had a lot of fire potential there because you're actually, it's like welding. I don't know if you're familiar with carbon arc projectors, but it was like welding. The only time you really run into fire is when you lost it in the projector. So instead of seeing that polyester melt that everybody's seen because they've done it in movies just for the fun of it, you ran the risk of potential fire there. But I in my time, and I dealt, especially when you go into these when I first started, it was kind of phasing out. It was mostly polyester, but working in these art houses, a lot of these old films are still on acetate.
Still acetate, yeah.
So never talked to anybody personally that went through the fire, but it was just, it's always, well, we got to make things safer. Well, that's great, but you got to think about other parts, the static issue. Nobody ever thought, oh,
they probably never thought about that. Yeah.
Right. It'll stretch.
In your booth?
Yep. Yeah. Had to. We had humidifier, we had sensors everywhere.
Yeah.
Then you would have anti-static spray.
Yeah.
You would take dryer sheets and
hold
them on top of it.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. But the big thing was we had and NAI was really, you had sensors. You had at least 16 screen. You would have 4 or 5 humidity sensors that you would go around and check, and you have to keep track of it. And then you had humidifiers that you would sit through the booth, in the wintertime. Never in the summer, but in the wintertime, you would be running them suckers all the time because it would just get so dry. Especially if you had a harsh winter to where that heat was running a lot.
Well, here in Colorado, man, it does not.
Oh yeah.
It's.
I remember coming and visiting you. It was unbearably dry. No, but I was drinking water. I'm like, why am I so thirsty? I'm just altitude. I drink a lot of water, but man, it was something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the altitude that first night is sleeping. I'm like, why can't I breathe at night? I wake up like, I'm like, man, this air is thin up here.
When I first moved here, it was 2000, and literally the very first thing I did, my theater was under construction, so the very first thing I did is I just drove straight to my theater. I wanted to see it, right? I was excited. And I pull into the parking lot, and then I get out, and I ran up the stairs on the outside of the building that went up to the projection booth, and I ran up the stairs. I swear I thought I was going to throw up when I got to the top. I was like, oh shit. That was a bad idea, man. So after that first theater that you worked out, where'd you go from there?
Whew, man, you're going way back.
Yeah, you're old, B.
Trying to remember. I think when I left there, I went to another. It was trying to remember. Let me think about this. Golly, it's going back. Yeah, I think I went to a 2-screen sub run. That
Two.
was,
Okay.
yeah. It was the company that used to own the mall that sold out to NAI. They still had most of their stuff was north of here, because this was closer to Cincinnati, Dayton, and then they bought everything in Cincinnati. NAI did, so they pretty much owned Dayton and Cincinnati. So, but they still had some drive-ins, because NAI didn't do drive-ins. Not there. They did some, but not there. And then they had a two-screen sub runs at one. Actually, no, one, because NAI did buy the
Was
other
it built
one.
that way, or was it twinned? Did they?
It was twinned. Yeah, it was no. Let me think. I think it was twinned. I think that one was no. It was built as a twin, because they had an identical theater that I bought on the other side of town that was twin, and then they added 3 on the back.
Okay.
Jeff actually ran that theater. They added 3 on the back. Well, here's the caveat: they didn't attach them. So you had to carry money out the back to the front. Yeah, you had to go all the way around the building. If something happened, you had to run all the way around the building.
Oh, God.
So yeah, it was needed. They needed the extra auditoriums, but when it was done, and it was done by the prior company, not by NAI. So
he was telling me about how his auditoriums were like all over the place at one of the theaters he worked at.
At the mall, when he was at the mall, you had Cinema One.
Yeah.
And then 5 through 8 was on the other side of the mall. So on the same side, but so you had to drive down. So you'd have 2 managers at Cinema One, and then you have 2 more managers down at the other place, because you had to run both places.
So
basically
inefficient.
Separate theaters.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it used to be when I started in '88, you also had 2, 3, and 4 upstairs. So you had a manager at 1, you had a manager at 2, 3, and 4, and you had a manager at 5 through 8. Because you had one managing director running the whole thing, but you had managers, and then like I said, your staff you would hire in and go, okay, we're going to assign you to Cinema One, or we're going to assign you to 2, 3, and 4. We're going to assign you, and obviously
did they compete? Did the employees did they?
No, we're all on the same team, because they would have to trade people off, because you got people calling off.
Yeah, just sometimes kids get competitive, because I when I worked
not back in that day, not back
mall,
in those days.
we were competitive with the plaza, the one in the parking lot, and it was like they were the snobs and we were the ghetto. It was stupid. It was just dumb,
Yeah.
We didn't even know them. I mean, some of them knew each other, but
I think the big thing with that one was because everybody, there were very few people that didn't end up working for whatever reason at all the different places. So, we were all on the same team. We all knew it. You could go watch movies wherever you wanted.
Sure. Yeah.
So it wasn't
still one. Is it still considered one theater, one organization?
Yeah, it was an 8. It was an 8-plex. It was considered an 8-plex. So you had managing director, general manager. I like managing director title better, but
great title.
General manager, same thing. And then you would have other managers. I think at the time I was there was probably half a dozen or so managers, but you'd have 1 at the 2, 3, and 4, 1 at down to 5, and 1 and obviously the managing director's office was at Cinema One, because that was the flagship.
Yeah.
Were you
an employee or a manager there?
When I started in '88, I was an employee.
Okay. Yeah.
I became a manager in 90 something, and I became a general manager in '94.
Okay.
So, I went to work at this twin, and then from there I went to the art house, and that was
different company.
Yeah. This was a chain, like I said, that they sold out. They still have some locations in Ohio, and this was just this theater was actually owned by the city, because it got to that point because when it was first built, it was autonomous, and then it was about to crash and burn, and of course, only movie theater in downtown.
Yeah.
So
like historical.
The city partnership. Now, it wasn't historical, but the city. It was called Citywide Development. They stepped in and basically took it over, so it would stay open. So it was a single screen. Like I said, had an outside box office. We had real butter for the popcorn. I mean, we would 1 pound blocks, put it in the butter machine, and melt it every day. And then we decided to do the Cinerama thing, so we closed down for a couple of weeks. We had to take out a bunch of seats, build the frame, get the strips in from London, build the Cinerama screen, build the 3, bust a hole through the block wall for the one projector, and build platforms for the other 2. Of course, you lose all those seats.
Yeah.
And we like, it was supposed to be a short run. Man, it went for years,
Really?
selling out, because people were coming from all over the world. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, people were coming over from all over the world to see Cinerama because couldn't see anywhere else.
Right.
So we were showing this is Cinerama and How the West Was Won. So that's the 2 big ones in the Cinerama thing. So and we show How the West Was Won more because that was an actual movie. This is Cinerama was just showing you what Cinerama was, riding roller coasters and stuff like that. So
kind of like how IMAX started out with just nature and what
right. And I think eventually we did show It's a Mad World a few times, but that print was really
rough.
There wasn't a lot of them around, and it was you really had to make sure that you took care of that one. So it was a little older. So yeah. Then I did that, and then I went to another mall, different company, and I was the general manager of that theater. It was a sub-run theater. The mall was, when I first got there, it was great, but then the mall started to decline. There was a big fight that turned into a riot, and
holy shit.
And they tried to say it was at the theater, and it wasn't. Some kids were playing around, and one kid elbowed the window to the wall, and it just shattered. It was just innocuous, but then that ended up starting other people thinking something happened, so everybody started fighting, and then every police and then known universe came. People got arrested and pepper sprayed, and I mean it was a big to-do, and it's all over the news.
Oh, good Lord.
It was like, well, it started at the theater. No, it didn't. It started in front of the theater. We had nothing to do with it, but you get bad press.
So. Oh yeah, it doesn't take much.
So the mall as a whole started, going in the toilet. So eventually that one, they had 3 locations. They had one there, one in Baltimore, one in Detroit, and then they eventually just closed because the rent at a mall is ludicrous anyway. So.
Sure.
Tenants went down, so it finally went down. So then from there, I was out of the business for a couple of years, and then I went back to NAI, and that's when I ended up. I had met Jeff years before, but that's when we started working together. So back at the mall, and then I've pretty much been, for the most part, I've been in it. Since that point, pretty consecutively. I think
you
I took
and Jeff
another.
Are about the same age, right?
Yeah. So I started a little bit before he did, but he stayed with the same company, and I was an impetuous, impatient kid. So you offer me a better position with more money, it's like, see ya. So but I've worked for all the chains, pretty much all the big chains now. I've worked for them. So it's been a good career. Like I said, the job overall, and this too. It's a fun job. It's easy. There's nothing really. It's aggravating. The guests.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes corporate people can be aggravating because I think that for whatever reason they forget where they came from. Mm-hmm. And I'm big on. I don't know, you are too, listening to your people.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes as these companies have grown so large, and I think we touched on this before, they went from privately held, most of them, to publicly traded. Their people don't seem, the views and opinions of those on the front lines are not as well received as they used to be, because the stockholder, the shareholders, is all that matters. What's my dividend? So I think from when I started till now, not trying to be negative at all, because I'm not, but the nature of the business and the way the business operates has changed diametrically.
It has changed.
Unless you're working for a smaller company. If you're working for one of the big companies, again, it's all about the shareholders.
Well,
it's not about,
the smaller ones have their own challenges relative to the big ones, because just as large of a challenge in certain ways, but like with the bigger companies, and like what you were speaking to as far as not listening to the people, it's interesting, because a few years back, like a high level VP was telling me one day, he was in my office, and he even recognized, he was telling me something. He's like, I understand that it's easy for me to say this when I sit in the ivory towers, where our home office is. So at least he was cognizant of the fact that he's disconnected, relatively speaking. And, but, doesn't change anything. It's like you can be aware of it, and I'm not going to sit here and like criticize them, because I understand that they're pulled. They have a responsibility to shareholders and board of directors and things like that, and that's got to be a tough spot to be in. But as an employee, I have my own my own things that I want to get done. So.
Well, I think some of the priority has shifted from the field and the people to the corporate office to please the shareholders.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I think that some people just need to stand up, because, yeah, you want the shareholders to be pleased, but at what expense?
Yeah. It's tough to stand up for some people, for a lot of people, though, when
it is
politically speaking, when you're in a company, a large company too, and people want to advance or whatever, it's like you got to be careful, what you say or don't say, or what you stand up for, with that's anywhere. I mean, look at Kaepernick and the 49ers, and he was trying to do what he stood up for. Now the guy can't get a job. So, not to turn this political, but I'm just saying, it's could be everything.
Well, again, two things. One, you got to pick your battle, and two, you got to be respectful.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
So I think if you can respectfully do stuff, and you should be allowed, especially grown, experienced people should be allowed to have that conversation. That dialogue should be received and thoughtfully and truthfully considered, not just lip service. Oh, we'll consider that.
Yeah.
Knowing darn good and well they ain't gonna listen to nothing you say. And there's certain people in that company, especially when it comes to certain things, that they are the foremost expert on everything, and no matter what you've dealt with in the field, your views and opinions are insignificant and don't matter. So, and that's any company. But
yeah, I mean, I've tried. I think I'm in good enough standing, and been around long enough. I can certainly express my opinion and sometimes even my frustrations, but I do, like you said, I pick my battles, and I try to, and at the end of the day, and I am respectful about it. I'm certainly not going to, piss and moan to anybody about it. So if I go to my supervisor or even their supervisor and express an opinion about something or whatever, but at the end of the day, if they say, well, look, this is what we're going to do,
that's what you got to do.
In my company,
exactly
know what you're going to do, and I have to get mine. So
exactly.
And
like I said, overall the business is great. But it has changed, and I think it's going to continue to change. In this current situation we're in, I think it's going to change. Is going when it's over, and we go back to business, which sooner than later, I'm hoping. It's still going to have a lasting change and effect on the business
for years, I think.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see where that actually does because of what's going to happen with the pent up demand. Does that put us back to where we used to be as far as staffing levels and taking care of the guests, or is it going to be more of the same of we don't care if you're getting overrun, but you're only allowed to spend $2.50 on labor for the whole day, and that's where I think the positive outlook is okay. They understand what everybody's been through, and is that they're going to do whatever's necessary to make sure that your people are taken care of and that your guests are taken care of. And that's what I see for most of the companies. There's going to be exceptions, but I think that's what's going to happen. And I think this is going to have overall, it's going to have a positive effect on the business. It's going to change the business, but it's going to be positively because of all the pent up demand. I think it's going to positively affect the business as far as revenue.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I agree as well. Like I think there's going to be there's going to have to be a balance, obviously, because as everybody comes back from this and is working very hard to regenerate revenue again, there is probably going to continue to be pressure on managing expenses and especially payroll. But that's where it's like finding, I think that's been a thing forever of finding that line between, what's the right amount of payroll to dedicate towards every guest that's walking in the door. And I think some companies some leaders do a good job with making sure that there is enough. And then I've seen one company do an absolute horrendous job with it to the point where, I mean, managers are running around with their head cut off constantly,
Yep.
and it's just, and constantly stressed out. And it's a matter of like it's only going to take one tiny little thing before your whole operation has a meltdown because you can't deal with whatever just happened, whether it's, I mean, back in the day, it used to be like you were running so lean that if there was a projector problem, a film problem, you only have one manager in the building and you're dealing with that whole problem and you can't deal with customers because your employees aren't trained well. You know what I mean? And it just melts everything down. And those are those days you remember forever, So yeah, I hope there's a good balance between, being able to make money again and get people in seats again and still having the resources that we need. So.
But I think that goes back to the shareholder thing too, to some degrees, because if you're truly focused on the guest, I think your labor will control itself, because people are going to come and you as a leader on site in your theater at your location, and no matter if you're in the same market, every location is different.
Yep.
I don't care if you're 3 miles apart or 300 miles apart. Every location has a different core clientele, your own nuances. So if you really want to take care of the guests, I remember back in the day when guests were the 100% focused, you had 6 ushers, you had 5 people in the box office, you had somebody at customer service, you had 20 concessions, including the 2 satellites in the main stand. It was all about the guests, and people were in and out,
and happy. And I think that's the thing you see sometimes. I mean, look, as well as anyone, I like my payroll. I like to be well staffed.
I do too.
And that's the thing. And I think I agree with you, is like, if your guests are happy because you've got the right amount of people working there, they're going to keep coming back. It's when you have more of a short-term mindset and say, look, we need to slash expenses, we're cutting payroll, then yeah, that works for a little bit until suddenly those guests are like, well, every time I go there, I got to wait in line for 30 minutes, or every time I go there, the bathrooms aren't clean. And it's like, well, the bathrooms aren't clean because I got 2 ushers right now, and you better hope you got a theater checker, to make sure that everything is copacetic in the auditorium, all that kind of stuff. And I will say, like, I've had a couple of supervisors in recent years who, even though there's a lot of pressure, the words out of their mouth is like, look, I'm not telling you to just slash your payroll. I'm telling you to staff according to business. So be mindful of that. I don't want you cutting and then suddenly your complaints shoot through the roof. Like, just, you need to manage it well, and I haven't. Well, the beginning of this year was going to be the start of, there was going to be some tightening of the reins a little bit, of the belt a little bit, but obviously things have changed dramatically since then.
Right.
But even then, it was like, there was pressure, but there wasn't so much where I'm getting yelled at. It's just like, look, you gotta. Sorry, I just got a message on this app. You just got to do a good job with it, and you need to be able to justify why you're doing what you're doing and what you're going to do to correct it and all that kind of stuff. So,
and I think a lot of people, me, I know I'm the same way. I don't get a lot of pushback on my labor, because it's where it needs to be, and it's controllable. And it might not be the perfect number that the budget calls for, but it's where it's supposed to be. The problem is you have so many people out there that go one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
It's just like any
yo-yo back and forth.
Yeah, any policy is created because people don't know what they're doing or can't handle whatever they're dealing with. So you have people that use just way too much labor, and hey, you need to cut labor, and they use way too much labor. Hey, you need to cut labor. They use way too much. It's like, look, knucklehead, stop using so much labor. And then you have other people's like, why am I getting 400 complaints a day?
Yeah.
And your labor, you've saved, $50,000 in labor this year. What's
and then you're not going to get the budget next year because you swung too far the other way. Yeah.
But so it's like, but again, under the right leader, knowing you as operating your business, then you can do stuff that you need to do and still take care of your guests. Now there are companies, as you discussed, that have just
lost them.
And I think they've crossed the line, yeah, but I think they went too far. But I think it's a lot of it is, and that's just my opinion because of where I've came from and what I see with guest satisfaction. But I think it's also part of some of these companies micromanage so bad because they don't have the right people in the right places.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They've promoted people based on need versus based on the ability to do it.
Yeah.
And they've promoted people over other people.
Politics.
Because politics. Yeah. Well, you're new to this company. We know you've been in the business for 47,000 years, but this person's been with us for 3.
Yeah.
Well, so and I say this all the time, and you'll probably agree with this. It doesn't matter what company you work for. The movie business is the movie business. Everybody's got their own policies and procedures. Yeah. People got different POS systems, but the movie business,
at the end of the day, it's the same.
Right? You're taking care of guests, selling groceries, and putting movies on the screen.
It's all the same principle, yeah.
Right.
And if you can learn that, if you can adjust to the policy. I mean, we both work for multiple companies as managers, and I mean, if you can purge your knowledge of one and adapt to the new one, you're fine. Because, like you said, leadership is leadership. In my opinion, I can translate my leadership skills into really anything, but especially in movie theaters, and still be successful as long as I can stay within whatever their core focus and directives are. Then you should be fine. I will say one thing I absolutely can't stand that I always get nervous about is when I go to a theater that isn't brand new, that I'm taking over for someone else, and that other person did a terrible job of managing their budget, and so now I'm stuck with whatever shitty ass budget they put in place, and so then I gotta take the heat because I'm trying to staff the way it should be staffed, but it wasn't budgeted for, and then you're like, all right, what am I supposed to do now? So, well, hey man, we came up on an hour really, really fast.
You want to do 2? I mean, I'm all for it.
No, I think we're gonna wrap it up. I want to do it again. I want to do a part 2 on this, or even a part 3. Same thing with Jeff, and I'm gonna do another one myself too because I mean, we 30 years in the business. I think we still got a lot to touch on.
Oh yeah.
And so I think this was an awesome conversation. So sorry I didn't come to you first.
I don't listen. I don't care. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know
I think you understand the irony in what I said. So
yeah, I do think it was pretty funny.
It was very ironic. So that was my whole point. No slight on you, not me being crying or whatever. It was just like, man, that's just ironic. That's so ironic. So that's all.
Cool. Well, thanks, man, and we'll wrap this up and then we'll do this again soon.
No problem. Anytime.
All right, brother. Take care.
Too.
That's the podcast, folks. If you're a fan of Karen Isn't Always Right, you can show your support in 2 ways. First, please share with your friends and get them listening. Also, please feel free to donate by going to anchor.fm/Chris-Fry, that's Frey, /support. Please visit KIRPodcast.com, KIAR podcast.com, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. New episodes are posted weekly on KIRPodcast.com, Anchor.fm, Spotify, Apple, and pretty much wherever you can listen to a podcast. The views and opinions on this podcast are solely that of the guest and the host and are not representative of any organizations or individuals. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.